ang temptation to sleep, ha? Naku, sinasabi ko talaga. Labanan nyo, dears. Labanan nyo talaga. Okay, all right. Sige. So again, these are my notes. You do notes, no? So this is, again, ano siyang you do notes. Kay popular pa to sa ato na time. And then reinforcement lecture ni siya for Lemar. Usa sa well-known good and the best na mga review centers for MedTech board exam. So I made this mga March of 2020. So nagtuwag man nila mga March 2020, March 1 gito. So medyo scary to siya na time, no? Kaya at least nakauli pa jud ko gikag Manila. Kaya after mga March 15 dito na nag-start ang lockdown. So shocks, what if natanggong ko sa Manila? Oh my goodness, shocks, 'di ba? So ayun, favorite pa ako ni Lord, mahal pa ako ni Lord, yes, amen. So pinauwi niya ako. But I was just one day dito. So reinforcement lecture. So these types of lectures, when you enroll in the review centers, dears, usually these types of lectures happen mga 2 to 3 weeks before the board exam or even a month before board exam. So reinforcement, you say reinforcement, it's just like, refreshing, no, and reinforcing, ayan, so pangalan na, the concepts that you must know or that you already know para refresh na lang. Para weeks before boards, murag fresh pagyapon ang concepts sa inyong mind. So inani ang points sa reinforcement lecture. And it covers all subjects in the board exam from Clean Chem to Histopath. Okay? So for today, what we're going to focus lang is Clean Chem. Now, Clean Chem, sa board exam, ilahang pamahiin is ang daghang gaingon, actually si Dean Rodriguez din, siguro yung ma-mention sa inyo ang lecture with Dean Rodriguez October. Mayon na siya na, if masayunan ka Clean Chem, which is the first subject of the first day, if masayunan ka sa Clean Chem, then expected na po na masayunan na ka sa sunod na subjects like micropara or CM or AUBF, maka-expect na ka na okay, you'll do well or okay ra. But ako personally, ato na times akong board exam, ang Clean Chem was quite challenging. Kaya daghan siya mga Morse type of questions like kanang 1, 2, 3, 4 and then mga statements pag yun. So medyo challenging siya. So ako personally wala ko gisayunan sa Clean Chem atong time. So pag-abot sa micropara, medyo na okay ra siya for me. Kaya okay, carry ra. Then pag-abot na po sa AUBF, medyo challenging na po. So like, in a way, nasiguro siya na truth gamay kato na pamahiin or wala. Pero it depends naman talaga on your preparation and your studying also. So ayun, muto siya mo matter gyapon. Okay, alright, ayan. So ano ha, Clean Chem, take note, major subject na to, no? Major subject, 20% of your board exam rating. So you have to really exert effort, no? As of course with the rest of the subjects, balag major or minor, effort regyud Japon sa. Okay? Alright, sige. So we'll start. Clean Chem, again, these are not all concepts under Clean Chem ha, mga select topics lang ni siya. So ayaw mo ka shocked if like, hala shucks, nga uban wala or something. Okay? And also, disclaimer lang, na ibang topics na di ako mo delve further kay makulangan tag time and also medyo weak na ako ang foundation. Kaya medyo kulang-kulang na dugin ako wala tunog Clean Chem pod. So ayan, I'll do my best lang to share what I know and how I can help you siguro mga mnemonics and how to remember stuff. Okay. All right, sige. Next I will start first with of course conversion factors. So please take note dear sa conversion factors bahalag very simple or what lumalabas pa rin sa boards and basin sa inyo pong compre. Conversion factors, these are numbers again that we can use para paspas na tamo convert, no, from the conventional unit to SI unit and vice versa. So if mo convert tag conventional to SI unit, atong i-multiply. Okay, so let's say you're given a concentration of, let's say, protein, no? Protein, albumin concentration of blah, blah, blah. You convert that from your conventional to SI, of course, ato lang i-multiply using the conversion factor. So if given ka 5 grams per DL siguro or whatever of protein, so you multiply that by 10, the answer is 50. So muna siya answer nimo sa SI unit. But if kabaliktaran, SI unit to conventional, okay, what you do is you divide, okay? So you divide the conversion factor by the given number or concentration, okay? So don't forget that. So kung conventional to SI, multiply. Dayon for SI to conventional, divide. Okay, so take note ha. Kaning number 1, muna ang nigawa sa akong boards, good, like ipa-solve me. Like, kato, gihatagan mi concentration and then convert this value to the SI unit. So, multiply na to siya, ganun. Na po ibang question sa boards na i-ask lang yun, what is the conversion factor of blah, blah, blah? What is the conversion factor of ganun? So, kanina siyang pinaka-common in your Rodriguez na book, naadira ang table, di ba? Summary of all the conversion factors towards the end. Okay? Kamusta naman? Asa naman mo dapit sa Rodriguez? Unsa naman ang topic? Kamusta na yung pagtuon? Unsa naman? Nakatunga na ba? Or hapit na mahuman? Yes?
No
Napa ba?
comment lang, sir.
No comment. Sige, sige. No pressure naman. Laban lang dyan. Okay. Alright. Now, don't forget ha, mga pinaka-common glucose na presabal na 0.0555, no? 555 murag tuna or sardinas, ganun. Creatinine, 88.4. Bilirubin, 17.1. Cholesterol, 0.026. No? Uric acid, 0.0595. So, very easy lang to remember for mga proteins. No? Total protein, albumin, globulin, 10 yun na siya. Okay? Alright. Ayan. Next, we have your type DM, ayan, diabetes mellitus. Now, please take note lang, di ba, we have two types, type 1, type 2, and not a third type actually, GDM. But type 1, type 2, atong i-differentiate, always take note, type 1 is autoimmune. No, it's an autoimmune disease or autoimmune yung origin. Your own immune system attacks and destroys your beta cells of the pancreas, di ba? Because again, insulin is produced by, kinsa may nag-produce sa insulin sa imong pancreas? Your
beta cells.
Okay. Parang di pa kayo sure. Di kayo sure.
Beta
Beta or
cells.
alpha?
B
Di sa
cells,
sa
sir.
insulin.
Beta cells.
Okay. Ayan, dapat ano na preservation mga inana, beta cells ang atong insulin. So kinsa may ga-produce, unsa may gina-produce or kinsa may nag-produce sa glucagon di ay?
Is
Alpha.
alpha.
The alpha cells.
Alpha.
Okay, so how do you remember? Glucagon, di ba na letter A? So it is produced by letter A, alpha. Okay, don't forget, glucagon na letter A, alpha. So yung beta, insulin. Wala na may letter A ang insulin. O, di ba? So ayan. And I think ang delta cells ba? Delta cells, somatostatin. So don't forget that, no? And insulin again is produced by your beta cells. Now, type 1 DM is autoimmune, no? So your immune system attacks your own beta cells of the islets of Langerhans in your pancreas. Hence, no, wala na mo produce og insulin. Therefore, the patient is insulin dependent. Kaya wala na may production of insulin. So, asa siyang source of insulin na wala na may nag-produce. Whereas for type 2 is insulin resistance. Your body is still producing insulin, so wala na gi-atake mo beta cells. But the problem is, ang cells mismo, di ba, are resistant to your insulin. So, dili sila mudawat sa insulin. So, in a way, dili ka kailangan ng insulin injectables because again, your body is still producing insulin. Diba? In contrast naman to your type 1 na wala dyan insulin na ma-produce, that's why you need insulin dependent mga drugs or mahimong insulin dependent ang patient. Okay? So take note of that ha. Again, beta cell destruction, autoimmune, imuhang type 1. Type 2 is insulin resistance, tama. And then for ketosis, as you can see, common siya sa type 1, pero rare siya for type 2. But I think sa lecture ni Dean Rodriguez puhon, yung i-mention na prone pod or pwede pon magka-ketosis ang imuhang type 2 DM. Okay? Alright, so don't forget about that ha, mga DM. So again, sa itong normal fasting glucose na to. Sa itong normal
70 to
reference range.
99.
72?
99
99, ano sa man?
mg per dl.
Mg per
Don't
DL.
forget the unit. 70 to 99 watt? 70 to 99 mg per DL. Please take note of that. And then atong unsa may considered na murag possible na diabetic ng patient. Unsa na range sa to ang
Greater than 126 mg per dl.
greater than
Or
120.
equal to
sir.
Okay, don't
126.
forget ha. It's greater than or equal to 126 mg per DL. So unsay tawag nato tong 100 to 125 na range?
Pre-diabetic.
Very good. Pre-diabetic or also known as impaired fasting glucose. Okay, impaired fasting glucose. So pre-diabetic pa ka, 100 to 125. But if it's greater than equal ha, don't forget, 126 and above mg per DL of glucose, then you're considered at separate or repetitive times na greater than equal to 126 ka, then you're possible na diabetic, okay? Or diagnostic na siya of diabetes mellitus. Okay, all right. Next, for mga methodology sa glucose, fasting glucose is 15% lower than in serum and plasma. Venous blood glucose is 7 mg per DL lower than your capillary and arterial blood. Serum separated from cells should be processed within 30 minutes, again, to prevent mga false decrease kay base na decrease ang mga glucose kay nadugay ug separate, your cells will continue to utilize glucose, so pwede siyang mo decrease. So kani siya mga numbers, there's memorize na lang yun siya, no? Yes, okay. Tapos, you have here, CSF glucose is 60% of your plasma concentration. Copper reduction methods, 5 to 15 mg per DL higher than your enzymatic methods. And for every 1% change in the HbA1c, all right, or your glycated hemoglobin, glycosylated hemoglobin, 35 mg per DL ang increase sa yahang plasma glucose for every 1% change. Okay, so mga numbers ni siya, again, I think gikan ni sa Rodriguez, yes. GDM converts to type 2 DM within, ayan, pila ka years? 10 years. Nagawas niya sa boards before, 10 years ang giingon. So that's according to Strasinger, according to Dean Rodriguez kaya po na book. Okay? Alright. Ay, sorry. Nakita niyo yun? sorry. Okay. Alright, sige. Okay, ayan. Sige. Now, do you remember or na-mention ba kung unsa na hormone daw ang possible nag-cause sa imong GDM?
Wala may
Sorry.
kadumugaan na nga chika, sir. Kinsa ni chismis ana, sir?
wala na ano na chika. All right. So, sa akong mga na-mention ako sa mga public health students before, but I think nalimtan na. So, don't forget, according to some references, it's caused by this hormone. Wala, Jod? Wala mo guess?
Estrogen. Char.
Estrogen. Sige. Sa paman.
Prolactin.
Prolactin. Sige. Baka next, Thyroxine. Charot. Ayan. So, this is, yan. It's caused daw by your human placental lactogen, HPL. Okay? So, some references mention that this is the cause or possible reason for GDM. Okay? Human placental lactogen. Okay. All right. Now, unsa to ang diagnostic test for GDM?
OGTT.
OGTT, sir.
Okay, very good. Your oral glucose tolerance test. Basta mga oral, gusto talaga niyo yan.
To do
Charot.
our OGTT.
Okay, your OGTT diagnostic test for your oral glucose tolerance test for GDM. Okay, next, for every 100 mg DL increase in blood glucose, there is a corresponding decrease in your sodium, 1.6 millimole per liter. Okay, so why do you think, ayan, may pa-orals na. Why does sodium decrease if mo increase ato ang glucose?
Osmotically active molecules.
Medyo dears. Bumabagyo ba dyan? Charot. Ano yun?
Osmotically
active ang glucose.
ang glucose.
So what does that
So,
mean?
So, mo decrease.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. Osmotically active imuhang glucose. So, what does that mean? Okay. Kasi mo gawas.
I don't know, joke lang mo. Dilute di ay after. Or dili ko sure.
Okay.
Ikaw na sigala.
Sige. Dapat dito ta sa sure. Unsa man ni? Charot. Ayan. Osmotically active, tama ang glucose. So what does that mean? What do you mean by osmotically active siya?
Mas mo contribute siya sa osmotic pressure.
Okay.
Then,
Uh-huh.
so mas muhawa ang imong sodium since naana ang glucose.
Okay. So muhawa. So murag malain si sodium. Kaya nihawa man siya. Na-offend si sodium. Ganun lang. Okay. So tama yun, no? Sige. Osmotically active, when you say osmotically active, it draws water to it. Okay? So what happens is because glucose is osmotically active, so it pulls water outside, no? It pulls water from the inside of the cells outside. So what happens is, of course, mugawas ang fluid, ang water from the cells into the surrounding environment. And di ba recall, kinsa matong major extracellular cation?
Sodium.
Ayan, perfect. So sodium, di ba? Atong mnemonic for that, piso, potassium in, sodium out. And sodium is outside man. So pag pull sa glucose sa water into the surrounding environment, madilute ang mga surrounding electrolytes. Hence, mo decrease ang sodium. Okay? Gets ra? Alright? Ayan. So, basta hindi ma-question na po sa yung orals. Ganun. Okay, ayan, sige. Alright, so that's for mga glucose methodologies. Next, we go na to glycogen storage diseases. Ayan, so kanisha, memorize lagi yapon, no? So, ako ang mnemonic for that kay sa first three lang, VP Cory, no? Si Von Gierke, Pompey, and Cory Forbes. And then, ang the rest, kay medyo, wala na. Memorize na lang yun. Pero VP Cory, and then wala na ako kabalo sa akong mnemonic sa sunod, nalimot na ko. Now, for the enzymes na deficient, always take note lang, letter A, B, C, D. So Anderson, B, brancher. Cory Forbes, D, brancher. So A, B, C, D. O, diba? A, B, C, D. You have Anderson, brancher, enzyme. And then Cory Forbes, D, brancher, enzyme. Okay. All right, so that's for mga glucose. Okay, all right. What is this measurement gani of average? Nako, average, nasa pangalan na. Average glucose, long-term average of glucose. Measurement for long-term average of
Glycated,
glucose.
K-
Okay,
HbAc,
I'd like HbA1c.
glycated hemoglobin.
okay, very good. HbA1c. Okay, HbA1c, your glycated hemoglobin. So, what is naman the measurement or this test measures short-term average glucose?
Fructosamine.
Fructosamine.
Ang galing ha. Fructosamine. Very good. Or glycated albumin. So, ang sa to ang specimen for your HbA1c determination?
Whole blood.
Serum, char.
Whole blood, sir. Sir.
Whole blood ba or serum?
Whole blood na agad.
Whole blood, sir, kay na hemoglobin, sure ba? Sure.
Okay, final. Or serum. Di ba serum?
Whole blood.
Whole blood,
blood?
sir.
Manisang diyan. So, the final answer, whole blood or serum?
Whole blood.
Whole blood.
Whole blood.
Serum
if may
lagi
question-
ang serum lagi ang naa sa I'm not sure. A serum
Like-
specimen is
Routine chemistry ha. Routine chemistry sa lab.
whole blood eggs.
Okay. So if muna question sa boards, let's say karon na, ano yung answer kay whole blood? Okay, what if given ang whole blood and serum? So ano sa to yung answer? Oh, asa naman? Asa ba na to yung answer? Uy, dyan pa ba kayo? Asa naman? Ato yung answer kay? It's
Serum?
Serum? Ay,
Serum dyan na diri sa karon din.
Serum, sir.
Sino ba ang gingon ni Rodriguez?
Oo, naa sa glucose methodology. So.
Sige daw. For HbA1c ha?
Ay, joke lang.
Serum ha?
sir, whole blood. Jud siya.
GDM di ay ang serum.
Okay, so atong correct answer is of course whole blood ha? HbA1c, hemoglobin, imong gina-detect. Naba na sa serum? Nasabi ko talaga sa iyo. Unless na lang mahimolize na
Libog
sample.
ra lagi.
Oh, di ba? So para conviction lang. So HbA1c, of course, atong sample is whole blood. So sa chemistry nato ng mga tests usually, kaning HbA1c siya ra gyud mo require whole blood. The rest usually kay serum na. So sa man na tube atong gamiton for this? Kung whole blood atong gamiton.
Edta.
Edta.
Okay,
Edta.
very good. Dili ba red top?
Dili, sir.
Hindi
Dili.
makuha sa red top.
Serum.
Serum.
Serum ba ang sa red top?
Yes, sir.
Serum, sir.
Dili ba day plasma ang red top?
Dili, sir.
Dili,
Serum,
sir.
Wala may anticoagulant imuhang red top, sir.
Yes,
Mau ba?
Mao jud, sir.
Okay. Sige. Alright. So tama. Purple top, lavender top for your whole blood specimens. Sila, ano na gusto mo, dears? Gina-test siya gusto mo sa mga basic knowledge natin dyan. Okay, sige. Pero okay naman, nakapasar naman. So very good. Okay. So, again, red top, gold top, mga serum na siya ha because the blood clots. Okay? And the liquid portion of clotted blood is your serum. Nakusukan pa ni first year. Sana naman. Okay? Alright, okay. So, kanang liquid portion sa blood na makuha sa purple top, unsa man na siya? Is it serum or plasma?
Plasma.
Plasma, sir. Plasma.
Okay. Final na. Plasma good na.
Final answer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. That is correct. So, plasma. Okay. Basta anticoagulated blood, na liquid portion, that's plasma. Okay. Very good. Unsa itong protein? Oh, ako na. Unsa itong protein na napa sa plasma pero wala na sa serum?
Fibrin.
Fibrin.
Fibrin?
Sa katong clot MM.
Fibrin na tawag?
Fibrinogen.
Fibrinogen di ay.
Ayan. Fibrinogen
Ang
na
wala.
napa sa plasma.
Ay, okay
Na
na.
napa sa plasma pero wala na sa serum. Kaya di ba na-use up na ang fibrinogen pag clot
Yes,
to
yes.
form the fibrin. Okay. Ala, hima natin. Kamusta tayo dyan? Okay. Alright. So we continue for lipids, no? So lipids, acceptable measurement error for cholesterol. I think wala ni siya sa Rodriguez. I'm not sure kung asa nakuha. I think Henry's. But yeah, NCEP guidelines. So this is just for like in terms of sa tests, no, sensitivity, specificity nila. So coefficient of variation, total error, and bias. So ang negawa sa boards is CV, coefficient of variation. So for cholesterol, take note, it's 3%. So among how do I remember, di ba ang cholesterol na siya letter C, no? So ang letter C, pwede daw siyang mahimong number 3. So pwede mo siya i-draw as number 3 ang imuhang cholesterol. Tapos for tag, 5%. So less than equal to 5%. Pwede siyang, ang letter G, pwede siyang mahimong 5 or ang letter T mo draw kag number 5. Ang T di ay tama. So ang tag di ay kay pwede siyang 5. Ayan. So tag. Asan ako dapit? Ay, sorry. ito. Ayan, tag. And then for HDL and LDL, both of them less than equal to 4%. So, di ba na yung letter L? So, kanang mga letter L's dira, pwede mo siya mahimong 4. Ayan. So, pinakailalong there's HDL, LDL, pwede siyang mahimong 4. That's how we remember sa CV. But sa total error and bias, wala na mnemonics for that. So, kamo na bahala. Okay, in case lang mo gawas, maybe not in your compre, but basin sa boards, no, we'll never know. But that's how we remember. Okay, so bias, kasi yung bias, charot. Belated happy birthday to me. Charot, joke lang. Okay, ayan, sige. Next, we have the appearance of plasma depending on concentration. Clear plasma, your triglycerides or triglycerides is less than 200. For hazy or turbid, greater than 300. And for opaque or milky plasma, that's a concentration of tag na greater than 600 mg per dl. Okay, all right. Next, you have kani mga moderate risks, no? I'm not sure if mugwas gapon sa yung compare pero sa boards suki kani siya na question good as in sige balik-balik. So moderate risk for age sa cholesterol. So take note ang age, it starts with 2 to 19. And then para ka mo proceed sa next, imong adan og 1 ni siya, okay? Muna siya ang lower limit sa age. So 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 and above. Now for moderate risk and high risk, always take note na nag-start kag 170 and then 185. And then ang sunod na ana is 200 and then the succeeding kay adan mo 20. So 200 to 20 to 40. And then sa high risk 220 na ang partner ani niya, adan mo 20 Japon, 200 plus 20 to 20 plus 20 to 40 plus 20. Ayan. So para mas easy ma-remember. Okay, because again, suki gyud ni siya na question sa boards as in sige balik-balik. Ni gawas pa ni sa mong time pod. So mga question na moderate risk level, high risk level for age 2 to 19 or 30 to 39 ganun. Okay? All right. So that's for risk levels for cholesterol. Okay, next methodologies, you have one-step method, you have Pearson, Stern, and McGavock. So, muna siya ang nani siya sa Rodriguez Yapon. So, one step is colorimetry ra siya. So, Pearson, so how do you remember wala na ako na-mention sa akong pika section ganina. Pearson, siya ang Pierce. So, mara siya first, di ba? Pierce. First or Pierce, so one step. Two-step blurs, na siya double O. So duha ka letter O. So muna siyang two-step siya. So blurs and then colorimetry and extraction. For three-step colorimetry, extraction and saponification, si Abel Kendall. Now, I forgot how we remember ang three-step Abel Kendall. But sige lang, namoy yung own method ana. Four-step, of course, lantawa pila ka bukang pangalan upat. So siya ang four-step, di ba? So Pearson, siya ang Pierce, siya ang Pierce, one-step. Blurs, double O, so siya ang two-step. Three-step, no, Abel Kendall, and four-step, katong upat kangalan. Schoenheimer, Sperry, Parek, and Jung. So sila ang four-step cholesterol methodology. So, nigawas mo siya sa boards, no, wala kayo sa mong time, pero baka lumabas sa inyong time or sa compre, di ba? Okay. Next, you have mga reference ranges. Very important. Take note, no? Among the given here, ang imuhang HDL ragyod ang best. The best. Very best if taas iyahang concentration. The rest, the lower the better. But for HDL, the higher the better. Again, protective risk, protective for cardiovascular diseases is if taas siya. So kung positive risk, meaning taas kag risk para magka-CHD if it's less than equal to 40. But negative risk, meaning wala kay risk kayo na magka-CHD greater than equal to 60. Okay, ayan. Because the higher the better. Okay, that's for HDL. But the rest, LDL, total cholesterol, triglycerides, of course, it's best if it's lower. Okay, because again, purpose na to why we evaluate lipids is because again of their importance to the development of cardiovascular diseases, especially atherosclerosis. Ayan. Okay. All right. Sige. Next, we go to Ayan, reference methods. Now, for reference methods, take note, dears, ang nakabutan ako diri reference method for cholesterol is GCMS or gas chromatography mass spectrometry. But do not be confused kay basin sa inyong Rodriguez na nakabutang pa kay Abel, Kendall, and Brody. Ang GCMS is the new one according to Bishop, okay? Pero siguro sa inyong exam karon basin dili pa mabutang, but if ever na amang gani, no, if na question about reference method, follow lang sa Abel, Kendall, Brody. If wala choice na GCMS. Pero if na choice na GCMS and then napod ang choice na Abel, Kendall, Brody, ano man tong i-answer? Prayers na lang. Mag-inibig. Joke bitaw. Ako, I'll answer it as GCMS kasi siya may pinaka-recent. Okay? Alright, ayan. But I highly doubt siguro pa na mugawas ning GCMS and Abel, Kendall, Brody sa inyong kompre. Okay? Dili di ako magama sa kompre ha. And I don't know pa the schedule. I'm not sure if mo proctor ba ko ano, I don't know. I think wala ko ilabot ana. So, and dili ko mag questions po. So, ayan. So, I'll leave it to them kung sa mga questions na i-ask. Ayan. So, GCMS, again, new reference method. That's according to Bishop. Ang former is, of course, Abel, Kendall, Brody. For triglycerides, it's also GCIDMS. Ang bago, pero ang iyang reference method before is modified Van Handel and Zilversmith. Okay. Reference method for lipoproteins, ultracentrifugation, so siyang centrifuge, and ma-separate sila according to their density. Okay, not included in the calculation for LDLC is your VLDL. So take note of mga formulas ninyo ha, mga Friday-Wald, Dilong, no? Yan, mga formula dyan. Minor lipoproteins, pero normal one sila, you have IDL and LPA or your lipoprotein A. Abnormal lipoproteins, LPX, and beta VLDL. So ang floating beta lipoprotein nato is your beta VLDL. So how do I remember? Beta, no, letter B, na siya ay boat. Siya ang boat, munang maka-float siya. And then, ang sinking pre-beta is LPA. So LPA, di ba, low pressure area. So LPA, na ibagyo. So what happens, kusog ulan, na uban na, mo flood, so mo sink ang uban. Ayan, that's how I remember. So sinking pre-beta lipoprotein, LPA, and because of the LPA, si floating beta lipoprotein, kaya naman siya ay boat, letter B, VLDL, munang mo float siya. That's how I remember ha. So LPA, low pressure area. So bagyo, mo flood, mas sink ang ubang areas. So muna siyang sinking pre-beta lipoprotein. And then for floating beta lipoprotein, siya ang beta VLDL. Kay letter B, na siya boat. So maka-float ra siya. Ayan. That's how I remember ha, pero wala na siya connection sa iyang mga functions ha. Basta niya ma-shook mo ba? Hala na LPA sa bagyo, ganun. So do not be confused. How I remember lang. Okay, all right. Now, electrophoretic mobility, again, please take note, the HDL, ang pinaka-anodal, meaning siya dyan ang mo layo o migrate. So, siya ang pinaka-duol sa imuhang positive electrode. Kinsa ni positive electrode na to? Kinsa maning? Positive electrode.
Anodes.
Anode? Anode ba? Anode,
Yes.
natong positive electrode. Tama. Here we are again. Here we go again. Charot. Positive electrode na to, is it anode or cathode?
Tama.
Anode, sir.
Ano?
Anode, sir.
Anode,
Okay.
sir.
Anode.
Final na na.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Tapos atong negative electrode, unsa man, ang
Cathode.
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 Ang galing. So that is correct. No? So anode is positively charged or siya positive electrode because it attracts the anions or the negatively charged molecules. So anions, anode. So siya ang positively charged. Kaya di ba opposites attract. No? So anodes attract the anions which are the negatively charged molecules. Therefore, si anode kay positively charged. And likewise, cathode attracts the cations or the positively charged molecules or ions. Therefore, si cathode kay negatively charged. Okay? Please take note. Ayaw kalimutan na. Okay. Next, you have standing plasma tests. Standing plasma tests, kanang mo lang ipa-stand ang plasma overnight. And then if there is a creamy layer, ayan, creamy, yummy, charot. Creamy layer on top is brought about by chylomicrons. And if turbid siya, it's caused by VLDL. Basta mga creamy layer, milky layer, nako, that's caused by chylomicrons. Okay, all right. Ayan, okay. Now, major structure of LDL is your ApoB100. That's why they're called apolipoproteins. It's because there is a protein na structure sa ilaha plus the lipids na portion. So protein and the lipid. Okay, and the major structure of LDL is ApoB100. So for LDL and VLDL, it's ApoB100. For chylomicrons, it's ApoB48, and for HDL, it's ApoA1. Okay, now take note silang composition. Chylomicrons ang pinaka least siya ang least dense. Okay, so siya ang pinaka light, siya ang mulutaw, because again, iyahang concentration or iyahang content mas daghan ang fats compared sa protein. Now, the protein makes the lipoprotein, okay, heavy. That's why kabantay mo, HDL, siya ang pinaka-dense. Nasa pangalan na, high-density lipoprotein. Low-density lipoprotein. Ayan. Because again, HDL consists majority sa iyahang structure kay protein. And the protein makes it heavy. Okay? So after ultra-centrifugation, so your HDL will settle at the bottom. So siya ang bottom. Because again, siya ang heaviest. Okay? Siya ang pinaka-dense. Okay? Alright. Because again, taas yung protein content. Okay? Content. Okay? And chylomicrons ang least dense because less rin ang protein content. Okay? Nagets ra? Okay. Alright. Sige. So, ayan. So, mga may kakilala ba kayo mga HDL, mga dense kaayo, charot. Okay, charot. Okay. Next, you have the different types of diseases, no, hyperlipidemia. So Fredrickson, I think nagyapon ni sa imuhang book sa Rodriguez, so take note of that lang. Basta gani mga creamy layer, as I mentioned, creamy layer, milky layer, that's brought about by chylomicrons. Okay? All right. So creamy layer and then mga milky layer, chylomicrons yun na siya. Okay. All right. So that's for your lipids, no? Review lang mga lipids na to. So take note, ang lipids actually quite one of the topics sa clean chem na medyo difficult for me to absorb, kaya medyo daghan kayo remember po. So ayan, so no pun intended kay fats man siya, lisod i-absorb, but anyway, lisod siya i-absorb, daghan siyang concepts sa sahay na medyo makalipong. But anyway, sige lang, laban. Next, you have proteins, no? Alpha-1 globulins, sa atong electrophoretic pattern, di ba, sa serum protein electrophoresis. Alpha-1 globulins, of course, what are the proteins found in the alpha-1 region sa mga electrophoresis? Nasa pangalan na. Alpha-1 antitrypsin, and then next you have alpha-1 acid glycoprotein, alpha-1 anti-chymotrypsin, alpha-1 fetoprotein, GC globulin. So nasa pangalan na, mga alpha-1. So you already know kung asa siya na region, alpha-1. Next, you have alpha-2 region, you have haptoglobin, ceruloplasmin, and alpha-2 macroglobulin. So nasa pangalan na, alpha-2 macroglobulin. What if we ask mo, what are the proteins found in the alpha-2 region? What are the proteins found in the beta region? Ayan. So for beta-globulins, you have transferrin, hemopexin, you have beta-2 microglobulin, fibrinogen, complement, and CRP. According to Bishop, si CRP makitaan sa beta band or beta region of your electrophoresis. But for Henry's, naa siya sa gamma globulins. So, if ang question kay which of the following asa makita na region si CRP, so unsa man tong answer? Beta or gamma? For you, dear, so unsa man yung answer?
Iampo na lang, sir.
Gamma.
C for Christ.
Ano yung answer? If ever, what region makitaan si CRP? Nag-conflict man atong resources.
Letter C, sir.
Letter C?
Gamma na lang, sir.
Okay, all right. For me po, if ako ang i-ask, if muna siyang question, I will answer gamma because based na siya sa Henry's. So Henry's atong Bible biya. So siya na jud ang pinaka atong ginabasihan gyud, no? So gamma.
Gamma po sa Venus.
Ha?
Gamma po sa Cabineriques.
Sa gamma po di ay. Okay, all right. But for Bishop, I think, I'm not sure unsa na edition niya akong nakitaan, but CRP sa beta daw. But anyway, sige, that's good. So gamma atong answer. Okay, all right. Now, di ba some proteins na sa pangalan? Alpha-1, alpha-2, beta. So ang problem na lang is, kaning mga walay ngalan, like walay murag alpha, beta silang ngalan, like haptoglobin, ceruloplasmin. So again, mnemonics is key. Ayan, padayon lang Japon o gamma mnemonics. Okay, now gamma globulins, as mentioned, di ba kamante mo, these are the antibodies. If you can remember in your IS, introduction to antibodies na to, di ba? The antibodies were formerly called as gamma globulins because again, early studies found that they migrate to the gamma region of electrophoresis. But later studies, further studies found out na not all of the antibodies will reach the gamma region. That's why you change that to immunoglobulins or antibodies. Though. But kabante na mga gamma globulins are the antibodies. Okay. Plus CRP. according to Henry's and Rodriguez. Okay. Not measured by standard SPE is fibrinogen. So I think this is from Bishop, I think. So not measured by standard SPE. So wala kayo tayo gina-measure na fibrinogen. Okay. All right. Ayan. Next, for enzymology na ta, no, mga enzymes. So kanisha dears, kani mga test for patency. I think this is from Henry's Yapon. So tabular. Basta patency lang of biliary ducts, you test for direct bilirubin and total bilirubin, fecal color, and fat content, fecal and urine urobilinogen and urine bilirubin. That's for patency lang to detect if kanang intact ba yung structure sa yung biliary ducts. But kung overall patency, okay, nanay pangalan na overall ha, serum bile acid and bile salts ta. Okay. Now, overall ability to conjugate, transport bile, serum, bilirubin, and abnormality in biliary epithelium, we use the enzymes ALT, GGT, and 5-nucleotidase. Now, di ba, usually the enzymes man good, they are found intracellular. So they are within the cells. So if mugawas ang enzymes or mo increase siya in levels sa tuang blood, it could mean that there is cellular destruction. So possible na ay damage, possible na ay injury na nahitabo sa organ. That's why muna siya clinical significance sa mga enzymes. Majority of your enzymes, increased levels ang atuang significant, no? Or muna siya maka-cause of maka-point to a disease. Okay. All right. Now for measurement of enzymes, zero order or first order. For zero order kinetics, the concentration or rate of reaction depends on enzyme concentration. And kung first order, it depends on substrate. So how do you remember? Zero order, na letter Z. So mo depend siya on enzyme, na letter Z. Ayan, okay. Now first order, na letter S. So mo depend siya on substrate. Ayan, okay. So zero order, enzyme, okay. First order, substrate concentration. Okay, all right. Next, 41 is a recall from my board exam sa akong boards. Wala ko kabalo sa answer ani while I was taking the boards. So ang question is, which of the following is not a macro enzyme? So ano ko ito na? Asa ni dapit sa Rodriguez? Wala ko remember ani. So it's from Bishop. Ayan. So macro enzymes daw are high molecular mass forms of serum enzymes, and these enzymes can be bound to an immunoglobulin or a non-immunoglobulin structure or substance, no? And the enzymes that are macro enzyme, you have ACP, ALP, ALT, amylase, CK, AST, GGT, LDH, lactate dehydrogenase, and LPS or lipase. So as you can see, G6PD ang wala. So ang choices atong among time kay CK, na ito CK, and then I think amylase, ASTDI, and then LDH, and then G6PD. So ang answer ato is G6PD. I think akong gi-answer ato kay AST man ata. I'm not sure. I forgot. So G6PD atong answer. Okay, not a macro enzyme. So kanira mga enzymes here ang naay macro enzymes, ACP, ALP, ALT, amylase, AST, CK, GGT, LDH, and lipase. Okay, sila ra ng mga macro enzymes. Naay macro enzymes. Okay. All right. Next, mga definition la of terms, no? Sa mga additional substances na mo react with your enzymes or needed by the enzymes para maka-react sila. You have the cofactors, non-protein identities. Ayan, keywords na to, non-protein identities that must bind to enzymes before reaction occurs. Next, you have coenzymes, organic compound. Increased concentration will also increase in the reaction. Activators, inorganic ions, okay, which alter spatial configuration. Metalloenzymes, inorganic ion attached to a molecule. So how do I remember kanisha, dears? Again, ano nagyapon? Keywords, no? Pares ganina, non-protein identities, cofactors. Organic compound, increased concentration will increase reaction, coenzymes. Activators, inorganic ions, it alters spatial configuration, activators. Metalloenzymes, inorganic ion attached to a molecule. Ayan, so metalloenzymes. Okay, so mga keywords, no? Very important to take note of mga keywords. All right, again, ayan. Next, you have hydrolase, mga classes of enzymes na to. Don't forget, I think ako ay isan sa inyong block rep. Nakita ko sa Twitter, I think, or somewhere, ang katumurag mnemonics nila for the different types of enzymes under each class. So, kinsa ito mga enzymes na hydrolase, mga ligase, sige, it might help you. So, hydrolase, you have lipase, amylase, ALP, ACP, no? So, mga niase. Liase, kanang mo hawa kasi yung balay, kinag-away mo, so mo liase ka, charot. Ang pangit. Ayan, so, liase is aldolase, no? By the name of liase, your it forms a double bond product. Ayan, double bond product, ligase. Ligase is you're like, when you hear ligase, parang you're joining to something, no? Or you're combining two forms or two groups, no? So ligates. So example of enzyme is synthetase, no? Next, you have oxidoreductase, MD, malate dehydrogenase, kato mga dehydrogenase na to. Okay. And transferase, of course, AST, ALT, CK, and GGT. So transferase, they transfer a group of molecule from one substance to another. Okay, so nasa pangalan din, AST, no, aspartate aminotransferase, ALT, alanine aminotransferase, GGT, gamma glutamyl transferase, diba? Ang CK lang wala yung word na transferase, no? Pero yeah, creatine kinase. Okay, all right. Inhibited by urea or heat, ayan, sa mga ALP nato na isoenzymes, is bone. Okay. Now, inhibited by L-phenylalanine is your intestinal and placental. So, how do I remember? L-phenyl-al, di ba? Phenylalanine. So, phenyl-al. So, ang yung ma-inhibit ka itong mga na-al. Intestinal and placental. O, di ba? So, muna yung ma-inhibit sa L-phenyl-al, no? Phenylalanine. So, L-phenylalanine inhibits ka itong mga na-al. Intestinal and placental. Okay? Don't forget that. Okay. Now, ALP, electrophoretic mobility, ako mnemonic for that is LBPI. Okay? So, LBPI, so liver ang pinaka-anoda, so siya ang mas mumigrate og layo, followed by your bone, and then placental, and then finally the intestinal. So, LBPI, no? So, easy na siya to remember for me because marsag bangko, no? So, if wato kag bangko, paspas ka mulakaw. Or like, wato kag bangko kay para mo withdraw kwarta, di ba? You need to move. So, electrophoretic mobility. So, LBPI. Okay. And for heat stability, PILB. Ayan. So, PILB. So, ako remember na is placental, intestinal, sila ang magsunod. So, kato mga algapon. So, placental, intestinal, and then followed by liver, and then bone. PILB. So, kung heat stability, PILB. And then for mobility, kay mo ito makagbangko, di ba? LBPI. Okay? Ayan, LBPI. All right. Okay. Next, for specificity of your enzymes, low specificity, of course, when you say low specificity, meaning it can be found in majority of tissues or daghan kang tissues. So, example of that is LDH, no? Lactate dehydrogenase, it can be found in a lot of tissues. Next, for moderate specificity, katulad ng mga makita na rin mga 1 to 3 organs or mga gamay ra, no? So, you have CK, brain, heart, and muscles, AST, liver, heart, and muscles, and ALP, you have bone, placental, intestine, and liver. Okay, all right. Next, we have high specificity, of course, kanarang makitan in 1 to 2 organs. So, amylase, salivary glands, and pancreas. Lipase, very specific to pancreas. ALT, of course, ayan naman, pinaka-liver specific na ko talaga. Basta ang question gani, the most liver-specific enzyme na kung na mag-isip, ang atong answer na is ALT. So, katunay letter L, liver, ALT. Okay. And ACP, prostatic or peripod sa RBCs. Okay. So, ALT ha, most liver-specific na huwag na talaga mag-isip. Most liver-specific enzyme, ALT. Okay, sige. So, unsa gani old name sa mong ALT? Unsa man ni siya? Unsa may old name niya? Bisa ka to ng acronym. Magtindog sa audience kasi kitang lubot. Sampot.
Sir.
ALT,
GOT.
SG,
SGO.
SGOT, okay. Or unsa man, SGOT, SGPT.
SGPT. SGPT.
So final, SGOT, SGPT.
SGPT. SGPT.
SG,
PT.
PT.
PT, sir. PT.
Wait, sana wala akong eraser, sorry. Wait, ay narade. Oh my God. Okay, sige, SGPT, final answer ninyo?
Final
Or
answer.
SG?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Naka-mention ba kung saan pag-remember, Ani? Or wala? I think wala. Sige. So, ALT correct. Ang old name ana is SGPT. So, how do you remember? This is from Sir Coloyan DI, na mnemonic. So, credits to Sir Coloyan. Wait lang, dears. Ay, bali. Ayan. ALT, SGPT. So, kinsa to maka-form og LPG. Okay? SGPT, LPG. Okay? Kung kinsa to maka-form og LPG, so ang ALT man, alam na mag-SGOT na maka-form rin siya, maka-form rin siya LPG. So, LPG, LPG, ALT is your SGPT before. Okay? Don't forget. Okay. All right. Ayan. Sige. Next, you have here enzyme that decreases in liver disease is your pseudocholinesterase. Now, take note, kanina enzyme, dear, pseudocholinesterase is the only enzyme or the enzyme that's important na mo decrease siya, no? And kung decrease yung levels, dito siya significant. Unlike sa mga ubang mga enzymes na kung increased siya, dito significant. Okay? But kung enzyme kanina decreased levels ang significant, atong answer kay cholinesterase or pseudocholinesterase. Okay? Alright. Ayan. Sige. Okay, nandyan pa ba kayo, dears? Okay pa ba kayo?
Yes, sir.
Alright. Nitindog sa ako, dears, kay marang ikapoy kong lingkod. Okay, ayan, sige. Alright, sige. Now, again ha, I hope you're learning something or na-refresh yung mga memory dyan. Sige, so hopefully na mo gawas ani from your sa yung compre. Sana naman. Okay, alright. Next, we go now to your electrolytes. Ayan, so ang electrolytes, dears, for me talaga, no, it's the one of the topics ulit sa clean chem that I don't like studying or medyo challenging siya to study for me. Why? Because dagan kaya yung concepts na i-remember, like samot na sa mga diseases, like does this disease cause hyperkalemia or unsa mga disease ang makakause og hyponatremia, and I'm like, what? Ana gani. So marag lisod siya i-memorize for me actually. So what I do usually, samot na sa mga diseases like unsa mga diseases sa makakause og hyponatremia, unsa na mga diseases sa makakause og hyperkalemia, I just try to find correlation. Ako na lang siyang i-analyze. Like, okay, kani siya ni disease, unsa may pathogenesis ani? If ma-remember na ako ba or if kabalo ko. Okay, sige, ano man din siya kanang magsige siya produce og blah blah blah. Okay, so what happens? Basin daghang fluid, ma-dilute ang electrolytes. Okay, so hyponatremia inana. But if lisod siya ma-correlate bitaw no sa kay prayers na lang dyan. Elimination is key, okay? Because aside from you studying well, part of you performing well in exams pod is how you take the exam. So your test taking skills, no? Your elimination skills, how you also budget your time, ganun. So that's how you napoy part ana sa pag-take og exam, your test taking skills. So if dili ka balo no or nalimot, elimination is key. Okay? Elimination is key. Ayan. All right, sige. So routinely measured electrolytes na to, you have sodium, potassium, chloride, and bicarbonate. So sila yung mga routinely measured na to. Now you have counter ion or counterbalance of sodium. When you say counter ion or counterbalance, it talks about charges, no? So when you say counter ion, meaning the opposite charge or the opposite ion na partner ni sodium, and that is chloride. Okay? Chloride. Ayan, sige. So chloride, ayan. So chloride is of course negative, diba? So counter ion, counterbalance of sodium, chloride. Okay? But if counter current ion of sodium, kinsa man? Counter current ion of sodium, kinsa man?
Potassium.
Potassium, yes. Sakto ba? Final answer? Potassium ba? Oh, bakit wala na nag-answer? So, countercurrent is, of course, that's correct, potassium. So when you say countercurrent, it talks about movement, no? So wala siyang pagsabot, movement. So meaning, if mugawas ang sodium, musulod ang potassium. Ayan. So piso, di ba? Potassium in, sodium out. Ayan. So countercurrent. So meaning, if mugawas ang sodium, kailangan ma-balance ang charge man. So musulod ang potassium. So countercurrent. Okay? Ayan. Pero counter ion, counterbalance, opposite charges lang, chloride. Ayan. Okay? Alright. Next, 5859. Ayan. One word lang ang difference, pero same og point, nerve impulse. Basta essential to nerve impulse, sodium. Pero kung integral, then that's potassium. So how do I remember essential? Daghang letter S. So meaning, iyahang counterpart is kato nag-start og letter S, sodium. Okay? So essential, sodium. Integral, potassium. Okay?
What's the difference nila, sir?
I don't know. Actually, wala siya kabalo. Unsay difference sa essential ug integral. I think essential kay murag need siya, per not necessarily na naagyod. Pero kung integral kay kailangan naagyod. That's how akong pagsabot, no? Pero in terms of kana mga exams, if word for word ang question, mura na siya to i-follow. Okay? Essential, integral. I think gikan ni sa Henry's Gapon, if I'm not mistaken, or sa Bishop. So, essential, sodium, integral, potassium. Okay? Ayan, sige. Alright. Next, electrolytes pa din. daming ano sa electrolytes talaga. I hate it. Charot. Ayan. So don't forget ha, ang iyang mga functions is itong mga electrolytes involved in volume, osmotic regulation. You have sodium, chloride, and potassium. So sila ginang nasa fluids na to sa body, no? Or ma-find sa atong mga fluids. So sila yung mga affected sa volume, osmotic regulation. For neuromuscular, myocardial contractility sa muscles, it's involved potassium, calcium, and magnesium. Ayan. So don't forget. Blood coagulation, of course, naman, calcium, no? And magnesium. Calcium, very important sa atong coagulation. Kung saan siya na factor? Kung saan na factor? Si calcium.
5, sir.
Ha? 5?
Cofactor.
4.
Once again. What's man?
Four.
Factor. Ayan, factor 4 ang calcium. Diyos ko, okay. Alright. Factor 5 is, wala. Mark, kung si factor 5. You have, I think, dili. Nalimot na ko. Sorry, dear C. Imagine na. Live, talaga, real time na nalimtan na ang mga factors. But anyway, don't forget that. Ay, wala factor 5. Sa mukha, okay? Di ba wala factor 5? Sa mukha.
Di ba factor
Ay, wala
6
factor 6. Tama, wala factor 6, di ba? Kaya ang factor 6 is believed to be factor 5A, di ba? Tama, ayan. I can remember, Ma'am Lera, salamat. Okay, ayan. Sige. Alright, sige. Next, you have cofactors in enzyme activity. So, kanina sila mga involved in enzyme activity. You have calcium, zinc, magnesium, and chloride. Okay. Regulation of ATPase, ion pumps, magnesium. Acid base, of course, you have bicarbonate, potassium, and chloride. And lastly, production of ATP, you have phosphate and magnesium. So don't forget lang, dears, mga iyahang functions, electrolytes ha, kung asa sila na butang. Okay, or on sila ang function sa body. Next, an ion gap. An ion gap, usually, we calculate this as parang QC sa atong mga, atong mga machines, diba? According to Rodriguez. And it's a measure of the unmeasured anions and unmeasured cations. So don't forget the formula, diba? Na, so cations na to is sodium minus, di ba, chloride plus bicarbonate. Pero pwede nang mawala po ang potassium because 63, least affecting the anion gap is your potassium. Okay. Now, for increase anion gap, kanin sila tanan, daghan kaayo. So you have uremia, ketoacidosis, no, you have methanol, lactic acidosis, hypernatremia, instrument error. So most of the time, the cause of increased anion gaps is mga acids, no, or unmeasured anions, no. So mo increase siya, okay, may increase siya. So, possible na mag-increase pa mong anion gap. And decrease an ion gap, you have hypoalbuminemia and hypercalcemia. Okay, so gamay ra ang decrease an ion gap. So, again, nagka po sa imuhang Rodriguez. Okay. Now, increase osmolality. Ayan, kinsa man ang ma-involve sa osmolality if taas, no? You have increase po mong boiling point and osmotic pressure, decrease imuhang freezing point and vapor pressure. So, how do I remember this? How do I remember? Sa kung mga students at UBF dyan, if you can remember, you have BO and CFV. So, if increase imuhang osmolality, mo increase imuhang body odor. BO. So, mo increase si boiling point and osmotic pressure. And mo decrease si FV, si freezing point and vapor pressure. Ayan. So, increase osmolality, again, BO, body odor, is increased. Boiling point, osmotic pressure. And freezing point, vapor pressure is decreased. Okay? Don't forget that. All right. Ayan. And dehydration, of course. If osmolality refers to the concentration, the number of dissolved substances in your blood. So if dehydrated ka, so concentrated kayo mga solutes na nasa imuhang bloodstream in a way. So therefore, your osmolality is increased also. Okay? Alright. Ayan. Sige. Don't forget ha. BOFV. Increase imuhang body odor sa imuhang increased osmolality. Makita ra ba? Ayan. BOFV. Okay. Alright. Sige. Ayan. Sige. Next, you have acid-base balance. Normal HCO3 or carbonic acid to, bicarbonate to carbonic acid or bicarbonate to carbon dioxide. Of course, mas daghan ato ang base. No? So 20 is to 1. Okay. All right. Now, fever will decrease PO2 by 7%. Fever will increase PCO2 by 3%. Okay. Because again, mga metabolic processes, okay, that can produce CO2 and can consume O2. So, munang mo decrease ang PO2 and mo increase ang PCO2. Okay. Potentiometry, again, atong mga, kanang principles. Potentiometry is used to detect pH and PCO2 sa atong mga machines for arterial blood gas analysis. So pH, you use the SANS electrode, and PCO2 is severing house. And then for amperometry, to detect PO2, and it uses your Clark electrode. So how do you remember, buddy? Nalimot ko, how do I remember this? PO2, Clark. Nalimot ko. Basta pH is SANS, PCO2 is severing house, and then PO2 is Clark. Okay. Now, the main driving force of your bicarbonic acid system is CO2. So I think this is from description ni siya from a book. I forgot what book, but nigawa siya sa boards. But the driving force of the HCO3, H2CO3 system is your CO2. Okay, now we go now to endocrinology. My God. Endocrinology is the second topic na di na ako ganan sa CC. Because again, daghan na pud kaayong i-remember. Ang daming hormones and then mga iyahang mga effects and then ang diseases like ang diseases kanina disease sa increase sa decrease so marag I need a break charot I need to breathe charot so ayan kailangan ko pa siyang i-review ulit but again endocrinology one of the challenging parts sa clean chem but laban lang okay now kani siya sa among boards during our time ang igawas gyud sa endocrinology na mo was reproductive hormones, no? More on the reproductive hormones. And nag-focus siya sa FSH and LH. So muna siya kung i-include diri. So if induces the growth of ovum inside the female or inside the follicle, then that's follicle stimulating hormone. But I believe ang nigawa sa amua was kaning LH. Ayan. So basta ay kaning spermatogenesis di ay. So if ang question kay induces spermatogenesis in the Leydig, in the Sertoli cells, then that's FSH. But if ang question kay production of testosterone in the Leydig cells, luteinizing hormone or LH. And again, induces the growth of ovum, FSH, pero release of ovum, then that's luteinizing hormone. Okay. All right. So muna nagawas gud sa among boards. I remember it. Wasyo ko pa rin sa i-answer kay. Oh my God. Nag-mix na tanan ba? Like, asa naman ni dapit? Ayan, ganun. But anyway, ayan. So that's luteinizing hormone. Okay, next we go now to immunoassays for thyroxine testing. So kanina dears, this is just additional. I think dili ni mo gawas yung compre. But sa akong boards ni gawas ni siya and na-shock kayo ko kay immunoassays and then ni gawas siya sa clean chem. So like ano ko, oh my goodness, di ba ni dapat mo gawa sa IS? So ano ko, shocks, oh my gosh, sa umani. So luckily, by the grace of God din naman, I was able to answer the 4 questions by looking lang at the principle. So it's best good na you have to be very prepared good bisag unsa na subjects kay na ang board exam usahay na questions like na mga questions na supposed to be or ga-expect ka na mugawa siya example sa micro mugawa siya sa clean chem example mga biosafety cabinets nigawa siya sa clean chem kay na ay part sa bishop about biosafety cabinets so di ba so nigawa siya sa clean chem so ikaw if wala ka nagtuon sa BSc kay ga salig ka na ay okay ra magtuon ako sa break kay micro second subject pa bitaw and then boom nigawa siya sa imong first subject patay good so mas okay good na you're well versed good no or like kanang ma-cover ni mo mga topics pa because na yung mga ani na mag-overlap sila and then nilang i-ask sa mga subjects or areas na wala ka ga-expect pero sa ani immunoassays no nigawa sa clean chem so ako na oh my God but anyway ayan so nigawas gini siya so ako nang gilantaw is ang description so take note first fluorescent polarization immunoassay so take note sa inyong IS before if you can remember pa basta gani polarization immunoassay na ay light emitted and then yung mga rotate so if mo rotate ng analyte mo release siya og polarized light and then mo siya imuhang i-examine so example here at the description na ay rotate slowly, polarized light. Nako. So, answer is fluorescent polarization immunoassay. Next, you have labeled inhibition immunoassay. So, basta mga inhibition gani, usually it's competitive, no? Ayan, competitive reaction. And then, you also measure mga unbound leftover na mga labeled analytes. So, mga inana na keywords, then that's fluorescent substrate labeled inhibition immunoassay. And lastly, kaning last 2, chemiluminescence, ayan. Take note, but sa chemiluminescence, you use enzyme, okay? And they undergo an oxidation reduction reaction. And after the oxidation reduction reaction, they form or they emit light, ayan. So, muna siya to i-measure, okay? So, chemiluminescence. And lastly, microparticle enzyme immunoassay. I think nato keyword na ELISA dito, okay, sa question. So, ayan. It's microparticle enzyme immunoassay. Ayan. So, that's how I answered it. So, thankfully din naman, na-chakto na ko siya. So, very scary. So, ako din, dears, general rating for clean chem is 90. No, 90. So, nakatungtong lagi kong 90 sa clean chem. So, I'm happy. I'm
Sana
happy.
all, sir.
Dili, oy, ano na siya, murag less. Pero kabalo mo pila akong hima. Pila akong hima. Para siya sa akong histo. 87.
Sana all pa rin, sir.
Dili, gawin na siya. Muto siya nakabira na ako, I believe. Kay 20% ba ang hima. So, 87. Akong highest kay clean mic.
Pangit makabanding, sir.
92 akong clean mic, and then lastly micropara and ISBB 91. So drama. Mas dako pa mo
Malipay
anak
na
ko.
nagkanigtay mo ka 75 kada subject.
Dilo ay basta kabalo mo dears, basta sa boards lagi as I mentioned, if naka-mention ako. The board exam is not your raw score. Okay, it's not raw score. I think nasa like curve, okay? Na curve kung asa ka dapit na butang or kung asa dapit
Nagutan
mo
ang
score.
top 1, sir.
Ha? Unsa to?
Nagutan na mo ang top 1. Highest
So, yeah.
one.
So, it's best gyud na kay if raw score to siya dears, dili ko mo top gyud, promise. Like gamay daghan kung say pato. Promise gyud, promise. So, kabalo jud ko na did ko ni raw score. So, na siya murag curve, no? So, magsalig ta sa curve. Ayan. So, thankfully na shock ko sa akong ISBB. Dito ko na shock kay it's one of the subjects diba na I'm scared. Pero medyo dako raman siya, so nalipay ako. So, yes. Okay. Ayan. So, kaya niyo yan. I'm sure you can go beyond na ako gyud, promise. Kabalo jud ko. So, kaya gyud na puhon sa inyong boards. Okay? So, ato nang paningkamutan, ato nang i-push, ha? Prepare gyud ta for boards, lalo na kay hapit na ra ba jud. Charot lang bitaw. Taas pag time pero laban ta. Okay? Ayan. So, again, balik tani ha, immunoassays, take note. Again, if medyo nalimot ka, ako ani wala jud ko kabasaan ni dears, like ano ko na asa ni dapit, wala ni sa notes ni Dean Rodriguez, wala gyud. So, nya ang kong gitunan for clean chem for boards is Dean Rodriguez sa ganahan book. So, ako na hala asa ni dapit. So mo to. So rely on your knowledge hopefully na sa ubang mga other subjects. So if kabalo jud ka sa principle, like bisag kabalo ka sa gist ba sa principle, then makagets you ka or like ma-pinpoint ra jud nimo siya. Elimination gyapon is best for it. Okay, and mga keywords, ayan, I have to emphasize keywords yun. Keywords ha, mga keywords sa imuhang question. Pero sa good sa backtail, like di ba mga keywords like safety pin appearance, pak, kinsa man na. So, safety pin appearance. Kinsa man eh. Na mix na. So wala pa mi focus ng micro kay clean cam pa mi. So sige. Forgiven. Si safety pin appearance, yersinia pestis. Mga na ba? Mga keywords. Para siya po diri sa clean cam. Okay? Sige. Di na to i-insert ang backtick kay basta niya ano na. Maano na niya. Charot. Sige. Next we go now to again different methods no of mga endocrinology. So memorize ra gyapon ni siya dears, find keywords no para ma-relate ninyo and mnemonics. Okay? So mga methodologies, example kaning urinary hydroxycorticosteroid, etc. So that's how you remember. Okay? So just try your best to find keywords and then connect or like mag-correlate ka. Okay? All right. Metabolite of cortisol in urine, you have 17 hydroxycorticosteroids. Metabolite of testosterone, 17 ketosteroids. Component of glucose tolerance factor is chromium. So kaning mga trace metals dears, lumalabas pa rin, pero sometimes less na. Pero important pa rin. So same sa Rodriguez, naka-tabular na to siya. So i-familiarize na to siya ninyo. So for chromium, again, it potentiates insulin action. Okay? And you have copper, very important, diba? Copper, kinsa may transport protein sa copper. Na-mention na to ganina. You have kinsa may transport protein sa copper. Hala. Kinsa man. Transport protein na to for copper. Siya transport sa copper. You have?
Sir, wala naman na-mention.
Ay, wala na. You have ceruloplasmin.
Sorry, sir.
Ala, take note. Ceruloplasmin, basta ceruloplasmin, image yung ma-correlate dayon sa ceruloplasmin or ma-relate nimo is copper. No? So kung kinsay take transport sa copper, it's ceruloplasmin. Now in very important Wilson's disease, there is copper excess because there is a decrease in ceruloplasmin. Because again, in ceruloplasmin, if gamay ang ceruloplasmin, so walay mo transport sa copper. So what happens is, ma-deposit ang copper to your other tissues. Sa imong eyes, can cause Kaiser-Fleischer rings. Okay? So ceruloplasmin, di ba, is the transport protein. So if decreased kag ceruloplasmin, you can lead to Wilson's disease. Wait lang. Alright. Okay. Sige. Ayan. So Wilson's disease. Okay. Medyo nag-ano na akong voice. But anyway, ayan. So per kinsa may tig-transport og iron. Hima ulit. Kinsa may
Ferritin.
transform? Ha?
Transferring, sir.
Ayan, very good. Transferring. Don't forget, transferring. Nasa pangalan na, transfe, di ba? Transporter of iron. Transferring. Okay. Alright, laban tayo sa Hima, dears. Paras lang tayo nito na medyo ano talaga. Natatakot ng Hima. Charot, okay. Fluorine, iodine, of course. Fluorine, tooth decay, no? Iodine for goiter and thyrotoxicosis if less or if yahang ano iodine component of thyroid hormone, yes. And then other important trace metals, you have iron. Of course, too much can lead to hemochromatosis. Okay, all right. And then manganese also is the least toxic among the trace metals. Molybdenum, uric acid production is important. Selenium, you have Cashin disease, Cashin-Beck. Ayan, Cashin-Beck. It can produce garlic odor of breath. Pero later sa toxicology natin, napoy garlic odor of breath, diba? So aside from selenium. And zinc can lead to copper deficiency. Okay, can lead to copper deficiency if too much then. All right, and involves in protein synthesis. Now 77, I think muna siya nigawa sa mong boards, dears. Basta na ay murag keratin or like inhibits keratin eme. So the answer is arsenic. Okay, arsenic. So arsenic is involved or mubine siya with the sulfhydryl groups in keratin. Okay. Now, other mga trace metals for toxicology, you have cadmium, lead, and mercury. Okay. Now, mercury, can remember mo, unsa na type of disease, elemental mercury, if ma-ingest ninyo siya, unsa possible na disease ang makuha for mercury, kato mga nakaabot na diring dapita sa pagtuon. Parang wala pa yata. Okay. Kung man to? Your?
Say, starting letter, sir. C?
Letter P.
Ay,
Color
sige,
siya.
sayop na.
Color. Elemental mercury mo makaon. It can cause the pink disease. Ayan. Pink disease. On Wednesdays, we wear pink. Charot. Ayan. Tapos, kinsa mo ito mga cause of red man syndrome? I'll press the buzzer na gini. Red man syndrome. Huh? Hala. Kinsa man to? Red man syndrome. It's an antibiotic. Kinsa man? Na nag-chat yun. Kinsa man?
Vancomycin.
Ayan, very good. Vancomycin. Pero kinsa man makakos og black water fever? Kinsa man to? Black water fever.
Black water.
Kinsa man? Black water fever.
Si Plasmodium. Oh my God.
Plasmodium.
Plus Falsi.
Falciparum, sir.
Okay, falciparum. Very good. So nailhan na itong mga nakalantaw na sa atong video this week. Sige lang. I understand if wala pa nakalantaw, kaya i-focus ang compre, pero sige lang, padayon lang. So black water fever, Plasmodium falciparum. Yes, muna itong topic this week. Okay? Alright, sige. Okay. So again, for peak and trough for your drugs, no? So we collect blood after an hour of oral drug administration. That's peak. Pero if we collect blood before the next dose, mga 30 minutes before the next dose, that's your trough. Okay? TDM, therapeutic drug monitoring, again, serum or heparinized plasma or pwedeng HPLC or immunoassays. Factors affecting, you have age, sex, and renal function. Okay, drugs of abuse, again, we use urine. Okay, screening is TLC or thin layer chromatography. And for gold standard is HPLC or high performance liquid chromatography. Okay, all right, sige. Almost done, yes. Bronchodilator is your theophylline. So sa mga asthmatic dyan, parehas sa akin. So pang open sa mga bronchioles, no, or airways. Do not require TDM is your analgesic. So take note, dears, no, this was a question in a previous board exam, not during our time. Ang question kay, which of the following do not require TDM or therapeutic drug monitoring? The answer is your analgesic. Salicylates, no, ibuprofen, acetaminophen. Okay, sorry. Analgesics. So, ina ko na-remember sa ibuprofen. Sorry. Okay, sige. Okay. Analgesics. Because again, these drugs are over-the-counter, no? OTCs, so usually wala kayo kailangan og TDM for their effects or whatever, no? Again, red man syndrome, nako press the buzzer na. Vancomycin. Don't forget, pink disease, elemental mercury. Okay. Then mga drugs natin, most potent or psychoactive substance of marijuana is THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, ecstasy, 3,4-methylene, dioxymethamphetamine or MDMA. Angel dust, angel hair is your phencyclidine, Your businessman's lunch, you have N,N-dimethyltryptamine. So, mga ano rin siya, dears, mga memorize na lang yun. A tea which contains tryptamines, you have ayahuasca. A means of tampering your specimen, especially in drug testing, that's adulteration. So, unsa na itong most common adulterant na ginabutak?
Water, sir.
Water.
Okay, very good. Water. Don't forget. Water is the most common form of adulterant. Okay, whole blood specimen, if you want to detect cyclosporine or to detect effects of cyclosporine and tacrolimus. These drugs are immunosuppressants, usually taken by patients that had underwent organ transplantation. Okay, so cyclosporine, tacrolimus. Metabolite of cocaine, benzoylecgonine. Metabolite of heroin, morphine. Drug of choice for absent seizures, ethosuximide. Odor of bitter almonds, you have cyanide. Take note of that. Odor of bitter almonds, cyanide. Odor of garlic breath, kinsa tong pwede gani? Odor of garlic breath, you have selenium.
Selenium.
Pwede po siyang arsenic. Okay, so arsenic, selenium, siya ang mga odor of garlic. Okay. Yes, Van?
Kanang sa ano ba sir? Drug of choice of absent seizures. Ano say absent seizures? Ano siya?
Okay. Ang absent seizures, kay mo siya seizure. Joke lang. I think katuni siyang seizure na dili kayo evident. If I'm not mistaken ha, nalimot po ko. Katuni siyang seizure na murag, I think nalimot ko sa meaning ani ha. Ang absent seizure is like a seizure that happens na murag dili kayo evident. No? If I'm not mistaken ha, if masayop ko, I'll just inform. Pero muni siya. Usually, sa among time na may pharma, pharmacology na subject, no? And nasya ko na, manong na may pharma? Kasa na mo ni magamit. Pero yeah, I don't like it. But anyway, ayan. So, absent seizures, I'll try to read more about this. Okay, nalimot ko kung sa siya. All right. But we use ethosuximide. So, if mag-med mo, you'll understand more about that. Okay? So, kamo mo teach na ako. Okay. Pasensya. Sorry kay Van. Okay. Sige. All right. Now, don't forget, dears, again, in yung instrumentation, again, do not forget, instrumentation, lumalabas pa rin, no? So, kung semi-logarithmic paper ang gamiton, we use percent transmittance against concentration. And then linear graph paper, we use absorbance against concentration. So mga ano rin siya, depende sa imo ang i-plot, okay? UV light source, possible is your mercury sodium vapor lamp, xenon lamp, and deuterium hydrogen lamp. Visible to near infrared tungsten light bulb. Visible and UV, mercury or sodium vapor lamp, and hollow cathode lamp. Now, trend and shift, don't forget, trend, gradual change, no? So example, di ba, ako para ma-remember na ako, if ma-trend ka, di ba, usually, para ka mo trend, kailangan hinay mo you need to build on it. Di ba? Parang ganun na lang. Sige. Gradual change. Pero if mo shift ka, example, mo shift ka to another course or whatever, too late to do that. Wala na-gyud, dears. Ayaw na-gyud. So shift, abrupt change. So pas yun, no? Ayan, abrupt change. Okay, now assay methods, dears, for the NPNs, urea, creatinine, and uric acid. So this is from an old book in clinical chemistry. Wala siya sa Bishop, but lumalabas pa rin sa boards, no? So for urea, again, inexpensive but lacks specificity. You have colorimetric, no? Because again, inexpensive siya pero dili siya specific. Next, measure ammonia formation enzymatic. For creatinine, rapid, increased specificity, colorimetric na kinetic, and then measures ammonia gyapon, enzymatic. So kabantay mo, if mo measure ammonia, usually siyang enzymatic. Okay, now for uric acid, special instrumentation and optical cells. So optical, parang it concerns light, di ba? Optical, ayan. So it is enzymatic UV. Okay, now interference by reducing substances, enzymatic H2O2 or hydrogen peroxide. With problems in turbidity, your colorimetric since mag-base man tawag color, di ba? So if may turbidity problems, so pwedeng maka-interfere. Okay, all right. So again, don't forget NPNs ha, urea, creatinine, and your uric acid. Okay. Now summary of cardiac markers. Ayan, please take note. Kung sa itong mnemonic for this, did I share? Atong mnemonic for this? You have?
Sir.
Wala. Oh my gosh, kakinsa din na section ako na, sir.
Itong emptical, sir.
Ha? Ano sa to?
Emptical.
Okay, or akong mnemonics for that is again the myotropical heart. No? So the first ayan. So the first a marker to increase is myoglobin, followed by your trop-I, followed by your CKMB, A, AST, and L stands for LDH. Okay? So if ang question nato is the first marker to elevate in AMI or in acute myocardial infarction? Sa itong answer?
Myoglobin.
Okay, very good. First marker, okay, myoglobin, myotropical heart. Ayan, myotropical heart. Okay. And pero if ang question kay first enzyme to elevate
CK.
in AMI.
Okay.
Okay, very good. CKMB. Very good. Okay. Next, pancreatitis markers. Of course, amylase is the first to elevate, but it's non-specific. So, ang pinaka-specific for pancreatitis is, of course, your lipase. Okay? Yeah, pero we're still gina-request nga po ng amylase because it's the first to increase. Bahalag non-specific siya. Okay. Now, reference method, dear summary. Again, this is nakita na ko online, no? But I think muna siya mga recent na mga reference methods. So take note, mga drugs of abuse usually ang ginagamit siya is GCMS, no? Mga spectrometry, ganun. Okay, then for HbA1c, again, take note, HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography. Now, vitamin D, inborn errors to metabolism, MSMS, low mass spectrometry, tandem mass spectrometry. You have NPNs, isotope dilution mass spectrometry Japan. And then lastly, you have, you have the different reference methods for glucose. You have hexokinase, di ba?
Sir.
Ayaw may guys, sir.
Sad.
Okay. Ay, sorry. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Madunggan ako. Okay na.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Asa dapit to na medyo na lag.
Sa glucose.
Ayan. Okay. So na siya yung point. So na siya yung mga reference method ninyo, ha? So again, this is based on I think mga recent na ni siya. Okay. But again, base ang gamiton pa nila sa inyong exam is the ano ni? Katong karaan. Okay? And mo siya dears, mo ni siyang pasabot nagikan sa bishop na ni? Biosafety cabinet. Okay? So nigawas ni siya sa clean chem daw sa uban. So usually ako ma-remember ang 70% recirculated kay 2A1, 30% recirculated 2B1, no recirculation 1B2, and then 2A2 kay similar to A2 inana. So muna ang nigawas no sa boards and gikan ni siya sa bishop. So muna siya nigawas siya sa clean chem, di ba? So expected ako na ganun siya gibutan sa microbiology. But again, take note lang of this, okay, if you have the notes. All right, okay, baka lumabas sa clean chem, but hopefully di naman. Okay. All right, so that's the end of our reinforcement. But before we end, so let's answer some questions lang. I think nakita nyo na. So I request you dears to answer lang bisag paper, okay? But again, di siya recorded ha. Just to check lang if, para mag-gauge ninyo ba, if ready na ba dyan mo or dili pa. Sige. All right. I-answer ninyo dears ha. Ayaw pumugano lang. Ha, pero we'll see. Okay. Sige. Alright, ready na mo? Okay, para hindi. Okay, sige. So, di na siya recorded ha? Ano ra siya? Sige. Ala! Yati. Okay, go. Alright, sige. Alright. So, this is again, assessment lang sa clean chem. So, basin di ay na mo gawas na question from this. Hopefully na. Okay. Alright, sige. So, ready na mo? Letter lang. Sige, 10 questions lang. Okay. Number 1. Okay na? Next na? Okay. Next na? Alright, next na ko. Dears, okay na?
G, sir.
Go.
Okay. Number 2. Keyword early diagnosis. Nephropathy. Ayan. In diabetic patients. Ayan. Keyword yun na. Okay, next. Okay na? Okay. Sige. Number 3. Primary mechanism for compensation. Metabolic acidosis. Mas matong answer, ani. Okay. Number 4. Ayan. I think wala mo kabaluan ni pero sige lang ako nang introduce. Kasi I'm sure marami nakaka-relate. Charot. Joke lang. Sige. Number 4. All right. Next, number 5. Okay. Next, number 6. All right. Okay, number 7. Kernicterus. Someone kernicterus. Okay, that's number 7. Next, number 8. Hypernatremia. Okay, number 8 na siya. Okay na. Next, number 9. Normal arterial blood for ABG, arterial blood gas. And then exposure to room air. What happens to the results? Okay. And last question, number 10. Parang na-mention na natin to. All right. Okay. Sige. All right. Humana mo, dears. Naka-answer po mo. Feel ako, lagi mo nag-answer ba? Charot. Okay na?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sige. So, we'll answer and rational. Sige. So, first question. Check your answers, ha? And then, let's see if ready na ba sa compre. Number 1, which of the following biochemical processes is promoted by insulin? Letter A, B, C, or D? Sa itong answer.
D.
Ha?
D.
D. D.
B or B as in boy?
Dog.
Dog.
Okay. So, D atong answer. Ang answer sa uban? D pod? Sige. So, atong correct answer for number 1 is, of course, yes, letter D. The uptake of glucose by cells. Because again, remember, insulin is the only hypoglycemic, meaning pampamaba o glucose level sa imong blood, the only hypoglycemic hormone, diba, in the body. And the rest, ABC, are all processes that promote hyperglycemia, diba? Glycogenolysis sa pangalan na, glycogen lysis. So you break down ng glycogen. So once you break down glycogen, you produce glucose. Because again, glycogen is stored form of glucose, diba? Next, gluconeogenesis is the process of forming or producing glucose from non-carbohydrate sources such as fatty acids, mga lipids, or proteins. So still, the purpose is to produce glucose or para mas musakay mo hang glucose. And lastly, lipolysis, lipo, fats. Lysis, i-lyse ang fats, still the same purpose to produce glucose. So therefore, atong correct answer is letter D, the uptake of glucose by cells. And by doing that, no, since kuha sa cells ang glucose, mugamay imuhang glucose concentration sa blood, di ba? Ayan. That's why hypoglycemic hormone si insulin. Please take note, okay? Tsaktura, na-tsaktura sa number 1. Okay.
Sakto pa, sir.
Tsakto pa, okay, very good. Number 2, ayan, early diagnosis of possible nephropathy in diabetic patients. Ano sa to answer? Ano yung answer?
B, sir.
B. B? Okay, ano sa answer sa uban? Dili day creatinine? Wala ni answer creatinine? Okay, so ang correct answer na dears is yes, letter B, microalbumin or microalbuminuria, microalbumin. So according to, again, Bishop, the presence of little concentration of albumin in successive or repeated episodes will point to an early involvement of the kidneys in diabetic patients. Okay? So kabantay mo diri, early sign is occurring increase in urinary albumin. Increase pa lang. So it's not saying that there's already the presence of albumin sa urine. Okay? Possible lang increasing. Meaning, napay konti-konti, pa-konti-konti, microalbumin na levels of albumin sa imuhang urine. And once you detect that, then that can point already to early involvement or early diabetic nephropathy. Okay? So atong answer, microalbumin, your micral, di ba? Micral, sa yung AUBF, ma-remember pa, yes. Microalbuminuria, microalbumin. Okay, all right. So okay na, nanay na sa iyo or takto gyapon. Okay. All right. Sige, number 3, primary mechanism of compensation for metabolic acidosis. Unsa tong answer?
Apple.
Hyperventilation.
Okay, hyperventilation. Unsay answer sa uban? Unsa man? Hyperventilation ba? Or na ni answer hypoventilation? Okay, sige. Ha, unsa?
Hyper.
Unsay sniper?
Hyper.
Hyper. Okay, sorry. sorry. Bungol, charot. Okay. So the correct answer is yes, hyperventilation. So nag-get ni dears, how do you remember? Mga metabolic alkalosis, acidosis. Sige. Online chika. So when you say metabolic, no, example, metabolic acidosis, alkalosis. Before that, what are the two main organs involved in the acid-base balance atong body? What are the two main organs involved in acid-base balance?
Lung.
Lungs.
Lungs and? Yun na, sir, kasi dalawa naman yung lungs natin. Lungs and? Kisa mo sa? Hoy.
Kidney.
Kidneys, sir.
Okay. Ayan. Very good. Kidneys. Kidneys, sir. Hindi ko alam. Charot. Kidneys. Okay. Lungs and kidneys. Nako. The main organs involved in your acid-base balance. Now, take note, when you say metabolic, okay, metabolic acidosis or alkalosis, the problem is, asa man? Asa ng organ ang problem kung metabolic? Sa
Kidney.
sa kidneys. Okay, very good. So therefore, for compensation, meaning para maayo, para ma-return ang pH to normal, kinsa man ang organ ang musalo sa job or kinsa may mo compensate? See?
Lungs.
The lungs, of course, the opposite organ. Very good. Now, when you say respiratory, of course, as a pangalan na, respiratory acidosis, alkalosis, the problem is within the lungs, or the problem is the lungs, and the compensation happens in the opposite organ or the other organ, which is your kidneys. Now, in the question here, ang question kay metabolic acidosis. So, asa may problema? Sa kidneys or sa lungs?
Sa kidneys.
Okay, very good. Sa kidneys, no? So therefore, ato ang choice is either letter A or letter C. Naragid darang duha. But hyper or hypo. Now, sige. Now, ako personally, okay, char. wala ko ga chika o ka ng ano ba. Anyway, for me to understand this, ako kay I'm sure na may katong formula na gihatag ni Sir Coloyan, no? You can use that also if makasabot mo. But ako sa kay malibog magug ko. So I found another way. So ako, for me to understand, what I think lang yun is, diba, the main two analytes sa atong acid-base balance is your CO2 and HCO3. Diba? Now, I'd like to think na ang CO2 siya ang mo contribute sa acidic part sa atong blood and the HCO3 siya ang base. Okay. Now, let's say that again, ato tong i-establish siya, CO2 daw ang makakontribute sa acidic, okay? And the HCO3 ang mo contribute sa base, okay? Ayan, sige. Now, let's say na problema sa imuhang kidneys, diba? Metabolic acidosis. So what happens is, of course, acidic na imuhang lawas, no? Kaya na problema sa kidneys. So what does the lungs do, diba? Because ang lungs naman ang mo control sa CO2. And diba, we mentioned that the CO2 siya ang acidic or mo contribute sa acid. So since acidic naman daan mong lawas because of metabolic acidosis, all right? So what does the lungs do? Do you release CO2 or do you retain CO2? Para ma-normal ang pH. You need to?
Release.
Okay. You need to release CO2. You need to relieve your body of CO2. Kaya diba, ang CO2 may nag-produce or nag-make sa imuhang blood in a way as acidic. Diba? Pero imuhang problema man kay sa kidneys karon metabolic acidosis. So ang lungs, iyang buhaton, iyang i-release iyang CO2 para, again, mawala ang acidic portion. Diba, sa iyang blood, sa imong blood. Okay? And how does it accomplish that? By hyperventilation. So hyperventilation meaning increase mong breathing rate, di ba? Magsikag inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So what happens imong CO2 kay dili siya mo retain longer sa imong body, mas daghang CO2 na ma-release. Okay? Nagets ra? Hyperventilation. Okay? So let's say ang question nato is respiratory alkalosis. O sige. What is the compensation for respiratory alkalosis? So kinsa may problema?
Lungs.
Okay. So lungs ang problema, respiratory alkalosis, correct. Now, kung sa may buhaton, kinsa may organ ang mo compensate for it?
Kidney.
Okay. So alkalosis naman, no? Respiratory alkalosis. So your blood is basic or alkaline brought about by a problem with the lungs. So the kidneys, para ma-return to normal yung pH, what does the kidney do? Or unsa may dapat gamiton buhaton sa kidneys?
Release bicarbonate.
Okay, very good. Because diba, as mentioned, ang bicarbonate ato ang murag nag-contribute sa basic part or siya ang basic na analyte dissolved in the blood. So para mas ma-return to normal imuhang alkalosis, imong pH, you need to release the bicarbonate ions. Very good. Lastly, you have metabolic alkalosis. Ayan, metabolic alkalosis. Sige. Unsa may nahitabo? Kinsa may problema?
Kidney.
Kidneys niya.
Okay, very good. So asa man ang compensation mahitabo unsa na organ?
Lungs.
Lungs. And what happens sa lungs? Iyahang i-retain ang CO2 or iyahang i-release ang CO2?
Retain.
Retain CO2.
Okay. Retain the CO2 because your body is already alkaline. So you need some acids, diba? So iyang i-retain ang CO2. And that is accomplished through?
Hypoventilation.
Okay, hypoventilation. May say hypoventilation, hinay mong pag-breathe. So, inhale, exhale. So, mas less or mas dugay mo retain ang CO2 inside your body. Okay? That's how I understand it, ha? That's how I correlate. But if katong formula ni Sir Coloyan nag-teach ninyo, mas makasabot mo ato or mas easy for you, then okay ra gyud siya. Okay? All right. Ayan, sige. So, number 3, that's correct. Hyperventilation for metabolic acidosis. Very good. Next, number 4, ayan. What's your answer, Annie? Kabalo mo, Ani, na mga blood alcohol concentration? Aware mo, Ani? Ngayon, Ani?
C for
Okay.
Christ.
Wala, sir.
Ano sa answer ninyo?
C, sir.
C for
For
Christ.
Christ.
C for Christ. Ayan, dinawan niyo pa si Lord sa alcohol, ha? Sinasabi ko sa inyo. That is correct. Letter C. So we have a table for that. We have a table for that. Ayan. So ako na i-share ninyo, dears. So wala ko na-inform ani sa undergrad na ako sa review na. So ano ko hanaday ni. But anyway, na siya. So how do I remember? Of course. I don't need to go far. Ako nag-relate sa akong self and sa akong mga friends. Ayan, so 0.01 to 0.05, ano ko, kaning na time na po ko sa, bago pa ako nabot sa racer, mga 9 p.m. So wala pa, carry pa, ginagmay pa lang, pre-game, charot. And then, ko na 0.03 to 0.12, katunin siyang time na mild euphoria, decrease inhibitions, katunin siyang magsige na kog sayaw, hinay-hinay, no? Pero pag virgin pa lang, Japan pa, mga shy type lang na dance moves. Drangdapita, no, decrease inhibition, some impairment of motor skills. So medyo dili na ko kalakaw tarong gamay. Then by 0.09 to 0.25, akato na ni siyang mga bad decisions in life, no? Ito na mga intense na sayaw, mo text sa ex, mo chat sa ex, ganyan na. Decrease inhibitions, loss of critical judgment, o drang dapita, di ba? Memory impairment and diminished reaction time. 0.18 to 0.30, kato na siyang time intense na gyud na nalipong na kog intense. Okay, ganun. Inana akong pag-correlate. And then 0.27 to 0.40, kato na siyang akong friend kay gaanan ako dira. That's how I remember. Okay? And 0.35 to 0.50 is coma and possible death. Wala pa minabot, wala dyan minabot ani, no? Thankfully. Amen. So, be careful, dears, ha? So, drink moderately lang. So, I'm sure na nakarelate. Nako, hindi na ako mo-mention sa names. But anyway, ayan. So, be careful, no? Drink moderately. So, you have your own ways to remember these, no? Lumalabas pa rin sa boards. Question, mga inani, what is the blood alcohol concentration if kani ang symptoms, or if kani ang blood alcohol concentration unsa ang mga symptoms. Ayan. So, take note of this table. Okay? So, you are aware already. So, sa next ninyo na mga get together, ayan. So, dapat na mag-set na mog level na, okay, guys, dapat ko to bratag 0.18 to 0.30 or anarata, or dapat ko to bratag 0.09 to 0.25. O, di ba? Pa, ganun. Okay? Ayan. So, that's for the tabular, ha? For those analytic shots, of course, you have your own way of mnemonics pod. But for me and the rest, yes, that's how I remember. Okay? All right. So, ato answer ato 0.27 to 0.40. Okay, unable to stand or walk, vomiting, impaired consciousness. I'm sure nanay uban nakabot ani na level. Charot. Number 5. Colligative properties of the solution include all of the following, except kinsa man ang mga dili colligative properties.
pH, sir.
E.
Okay, very good, very good. pH. So don't forget katotong mnemonic BOFV. Body odor increased osmolality. FV, freezing point. Vapor pressure decreased in increased osmolality. Okay.
Excuse
All
me,
right.
sir. Nakoy
Yes,
question
yes.
day, sir, sa itong sa alcohol, sir ba?
Mm.
Kay naka-notice ko nga nag-overlap ang mga values.
Yeah.
So like what
Mm.
if hatagan na kag certain value niya, overlap siya sa mga range.
Okay. Ako I think wala pa na siya nahitabo, dears. Pero mag-range man good siya. So murag kabantay po mo ang symptoms pod kay usahay mag-overlap siya para sa 0.03 to 0.12 na decrease inhibitions, and then 0.09 to 0.25 na po decrease inhibitions. So if ever man gani, then just choose na lang siguro if inato ang choice, just look at the possible na murag specific yun niya or niya ra gyud ang symptoms. Pero so far wala ko katry gyud ana range ra gyud ang naa. Grabe na pud ka brutal inyo ang teacher. Pero yeah, range ra usually. But if kana may tabo like para sa Gunelenos na kanadjong in between range ra gyud, no? So very challenging. So look at the different signs and symptoms kung asa jud siya mabilong. Okay? Kung naay like example 0.18 ang gihatag, then naay mental confusion, pero walay nakabutang na decrease inhibitions, critical judgment, memory impairment, diminished reaction time, kay since in between man siya 0.09 to 0.25 pod. So ang imong answer na is mental confusion, di ba? But again, so far range ra gyud siya, no? Hopefully naman po dili ra pud no? Grabe na kaayo, okay? All right, ayan, sige. So look at the signs and symptoms. Okay? All right. So hopefully naman dili ra na mabutan na level Lenos. Okay?
Mga jud,
Sana
sir.
naman. Okay, akong chikanto mag-question. Charot. Ayan, so pH, don't forget, no? FVBO muna siya mga colligative properties natin. Okay. All right. Next, beta gamma bridging. Kinsa may nag-cause ani? Kinsa yung answer? Ay, nakita na. kinsa may naka-cause sa beta gamma bridging? Kinsa yung naka-cause? Kinsa yung answer? Kinsa yung answer, ani? You have?
In my opinion,
Haon sa?
In my humble
Yes, sir.
opinion,
Unsa? Yes.
C for Christ.
A, sir.
Tama, Jod. C for Christ. IgA. Yes. Grabe yun, no? C, IgA. And that's according to Henry's. Ayan. So, according to Henry's, no, in beta-gamma bridging, the increase in IgA in the beta region, wala siya nabot sa gamma, yang i-connect ang beta o gamma region. So, we'll look into the different electrophoretic patterns. Ayan, don't forget that this is the normal. This is the normal. This is from Bishop. Kaning pinakadako is, of course, albumin. Because albumin is the largest number, no? Highest concentration of protein in your blood is albumin. So siyang pinakataas, okay? Albumin followed by your alpha-1 globulin or alpha-1 region, alpha-2, beta, and then of course the gamma. So this is the normal. Now in cases of monoclonal increase, meaning there's an increase in monoclonal antibodies or monoclonal gammopathy such as multiple myeloma. So sige ka produce og antibodies. So therefore, asa man na region ng antibodies na asa imong gamma region. So there is a spike, no? This is considered as the gamma spike, di ba? Or M spike, di ba? Because of multiple myeloma, example, monoclonal gammopathy, sige ka increase, sige ka produce og antibodies. Okay? Di ba multiple myeloma, sa tong protein na very common or na ma-detect sa urine of patients with multiple myeloma. Ano tawag ato? Ha? AUBF? Kamusta na? Unsa man to? Kinsa man to na protein detected in patients with multiple myeloma? What is the name of the protein? Ha?
Joke ka.
Bench.
Gusto niyo to?
Benz.
Unsa?
BJ.
Ayan. Benz Jones
Benz
protein. Nako. Your BJ, Benz Jones protein, BJKM, ganun. Benz Jones protein. Take note of that. Okay. So because of, again, monoclonal gammopathy, sige nga produce of antibodies. So increase yung concentration sa antibodies, and antibodies are found in the gamma region. There is a gamma spike or M spike. Monoclonal spike. Ganun. Next, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. Of course, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency constitutes, ang alpha-1 antitrypsin constitutes the majority of the alpha-1 region. So if mugamay siya, of course, na ay decrease, no, in your alpha-1 region. Okay, ayan. Next, nephrotic syndrome. As you can see, elevated ang alpha-2 macroglobulin. Take note, nephrotic syndrome, AUBF, di ba? Nephrotic syndrome is a disease sa kidneys. The glomerulus are attracted or kanang attracted due to the high molecular weight proteins and mga lipids, di ba? So nawala ang shield of negativity, na-destroy ang shield of negativity. So what happens? There is massive proteinuria and lipiduria. Now, nako talaga mga AUBF dyan. Massive proteinuria and lipiduria. So as you can see, nephrotic syndrome, there's a decrease in albumin, but there's an increase in alpha-2 region because again of the alpha-2 macroglobulin. Your alpha-2 macroglobulin in the alpha-2 region doesn't get filtered in your glomerulus because of its large size. So what happens is ma-stay siya sa serum, so munang increase ang alpha-2 region sa imuhang electrophoresis. Because again, the alpha-2 macroglobulin, which constitutes majority of the alpha-2 region, cannot be filtered by your kidneys because of its large size. Nasa pangalan na alpha-2 macroglobulin. Okay. And the last na mga patterns, inflammation, of course, tanang proteins increased, especially sa alpha-1, alpha-2, and beta, because these regions contain your acute phase reactants. And acute phase reactants are increased during inflammation. And lastly, as you can see, beta-gamma bridge, ayan, as you can see in cirrhosis, again, the proteins are decreased, albumin is also decreased because the liver is affected. And liver synthesizes your proteins, except the globulins, mga immunoglobulins. So as you can see, because of IgA, na naara sa beta, region, wala nabot sa gamma, iyahang gibind ang beta and gamma region sa electrophoresis. Okay? Alright. Nag-gets ra? Ayan. So mga different patterns sa electrophoresis ha, take note. Okay. Alright. Number 7. What's yung answer, Ani? We're almost done. Baka lumapaw tayo, no? Yes, okay. Lapit na. 7. Unsa man itong answer, Ani? What's yung answer? Kernicterus daw is certain gonna maka-damage if ang bilirubin kay unsa man na levels exceeding
20.
Okay, all right, that's correct. 20, no? So if may ani, atong i-answer katunod yung pinakataas. Okay? All right, ipata kabalo. So again, according to Henry's, danger of kernicterus is evident or certain good if the bilirubin levels exceed 20 mg per dl. Please take note, okay? 20 mg per dl kernicterus is certain na maka-damage sa bata, di ba? That's kernicterus is when the bilirubin reaches the brain, usually mga newborns, no, sa mga infants. And ito ang pag-therapy ana is phototherapy. Okay. All right. Number 8, ayan. All given conditions can cause hypernatremia except, what's itong answer? Kani, yung mga diseases sa electrolytes. Unsa?
A.
Diabetes.
A.
Except, okay. All right. A yung final answer? Hypernatremia.
Kay
Okay?
low
So
man
ato
ang
answer.
imuhang weight.
So ato answer is actually letter D, no?
Ah,
SIADH. Now take note, letter A, DI, diabetes insipidus. Unsa kanang problema sa diabetes insipidus?
deficient ka of AD or AV.
Okay. Depende kag ADH or vasopressin. Now, what is the main function of your ADH?
Water retention.
It prevents the urination.
Or it promotes
Water
water.
retention.
Tension.
Okay. So in DI, wala man kay ADH. So what happens? Magsigir kag pangihi. Magsigir kag release og fluid. So what happens is ma-concentrate imuhang
So,
sodium or electrolyte. So therefore makakos siya hypernatremia, 'di ba? Next, hyperaldosteronism. Because again, unsay main hormone that regulates your sodium concentration? Unsa man?
aldosterone.
Aldosterone.
Very good. Na nasa pangalan na, hyperaldosteronism, sige nga produce og aldosterone, hence magsigig sodium retention. So what happens is, of course, increased gyapon imuhang sodium concentration. Next, prolonged diarrhea.
Muna ako
Because
answers.
prolonged diarrhea, magsikag kalibang, di ba? Magsikag liquid imong stool, sikag fluid loss gyapon, no? So what happens is pwedeng again dehydrate, no? Ma-concentrate ang imong electrolytes, can cause hypernatremia pa rin. Ang SIADH is syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion. So magsigira kag produce og ADH bahalag dili kailangan or inappropriate no release of your ADH. So what happens? Magsigig na ADH and ADH is involved in fluid water retention. So magsigag retain og water, what happens is ma-dilute mo ang sodium, it will cause hyponatremia, not hyper. Okay? Na-gets ready here's how we correlate ng mga diseases. Okay? If ever nalimtan yun, so don't forget. So, mga inana siya.
Sir,
Okay?
na question aning sa letter C, sir ba?
Mm.
Kay, at the same time po, sir, kaya na-discuss mo po, I don't know lang po, sir, kay, ang sa, kay napod same concept sa vomiting o prolonged vomiting. Kay, nakuha na mo, sir, kay if vomiting siya, kay ma-hypernatremia siya because loss of fluid, so relative ang iyahang yang concentration, so less water, more solute, so hypernatremia. Pero prolonged vomiting kay magka-hyponatremia siya, sir, kay prolonged man iyahang sigig release of fluid, apil na pod ang electrolytes of release iyahang body, sir, manang mugamay pod ang sodium concentration. Moy kuan sa I think sa Strassinger sa Strass ang nakuha, sir.
Alright, sige. That's good. Ay, sige, gets, okay. Understood, sige. But for, inanang sa Rodriguez, nag-base siya po ko, prolonged diarrhea, akong gibasa sa sabi siya, pinato siya, kay magsikag kalibang daw, so magsikag fluid loss. So that's good sa vomiting. Usually maglibog pa po ka na diarrhea, vomiting, sila mga effects, no? But yeah. So it's more on fluid loss and also if prolonged na, so mas dugay na siya, so possible po na maka-produce og decrease no in the electrolytes. Yes. For diarrhea, again, kung prolonged diarrhea, I think ang i-focus ato kay fluid, no? So muna siyang atong answer here is SIDH. Okay? If I'm not may nasa imuhang sa imuhang Rodriguez. Let me check again para dili ta magka diri baka kasaban ko din yun. Dili man ko di ba ang gitulo ni Sir Charat. Okay.
Yes, sir, mao ang nasa Rodriguez.
Yeah, excess water loss Japan. Yeah. Sige lang ato na i-resolve ang mga conflicts sa rational, but in a way it can help you talaga in correlating if wala mo na ka-memorize. Sige. Medyo last two. Which of the following effects? Thank you for that, Dane. Yes, which of the following effects ang maresult after exposure of arterial blood to room air? Sa mahitabo. Sa itong answer. Sa may yung answer. Our answer is?
B.
Letter?
B.
B. Okay. Sige.
Joke.
Any other answers? Actually, the answer
For
here.
Christ.
Answer is letter A, yes. So how do you remember? Your arterial blood contains mga gases, di ba? Now, if you expose that to room air, room air in itself contains a lot of gases po, di ba? Especially oxygen. Now, when you expose your your arterial blood to room air, the oxygen found in the room air will be dissolved in your blood. So therefore, pwede siya mo increase sa PO2. Hence, next, imuhang blood that contains CO2, pwede mo evaporate pag expose mo sa room air. Hence, mo decrease imuhang CO2. And since, di ba, we mentioned that the CO2 contributes the acidic part sa imuhang blood, therefore, nawala man ang CO2, ni evaporate man siya, what happens to the pH? It becomes alkaline, no? pH increase. Okay? All right? Nagets ra? So if when you expose it to room air, again, oxygen from room air will be dissolved in blood. So pwedeng mo increase sa PO2. Your PCO2 will evaporate, or your CO2 from the blood will evaporate, causing it to decrease. And once the CO2 is released to the environment, the pH becomes alkaline. Di ba? We mentioned man na CO2 is the acidic portion of the para sa imuhang acid base, di ba? All right. So that's how we correlate. All right. So that's for effects of arterial blood gas when exposed to room air. Okay. All right. And lastly, only enzyme again na iyahang clinical significance is when it's decreased rather than increased. Kinsa man to? Na-mention na to. C.
C.
Cholinesterase.
Pseudocholinesterase, again, usually seen in pesticide poisoning or organophosphate poisoning. So the pesticide in a way inhibits or pwede niyang i-decrease ang levels sa imong cholinesterase. Okay? So kung decreased levels of cholinesterase, dira siya significant. Unlike sa ubang enzymes nimo na kung elevated, dito siya significant. Okay? All right. And that's the end of our reinforcement. Yes? Kamusta man, dears? Kamusta inyong scores? Kamusta man ang scores?